The anime begins with our protagonist Azusa, an executive who dedicated her entire life to the slavery of work until she died from stress. Now she's in heaven, where a goddess is sad because she died very young due to overworking. Therefore, the goddess offered to grant her a better life in her next reincarnation, in addition to granting her one wish. Azusa only asked to be immortal, and it was easily granted. The angel used their powers to send her to a good place and give her a young and immortal body. So, Azusa appeared in a beautiful highland, dressed as a witch. She soon found an abandoned cabin with a sign saying that anyone could stay there. Azusa was certain that the goddess had prepared it for her, just like her youthful appearance. She was happy with her new home, where she had a garden to cultivate in a nearby village. She also obtained money and a weapon to start her adventure in this new world. When she went out to explore the area, she encountered a small slime that couldn't harm her when it tried to attack. So, Azusa defeated it with her weapon and obtained a gem from its insides, realizing that the highland was filled with these small slimes. But for now, she continued on her path until she reached the village, and a woman directed her to the Adventurers Guild. To exchange the gems she obtained from the slimes, a cute receptionist helped her complete the registration process at the guild. For this, she had to place her hand on a book that displayed her information as a level 1 witch. Now, they gave her the money and she could happily return. Azusa then returned home to lead a relaxed life, eating well, sleeping at any time, and working in her own garden. She also hunted slimes for exercise and to earn money. So, she decided to hunt a total of 25 slimes every day. Another source of income came from collecting herbs to create medicine and selling it in the village. In this way, Azusa lived for another 300 years. After spending so much time helping people fight diseases, she had become famous and highly respected. When she went to exchange her money at the guild, this time the receptionist girl was curious to know the statistics of a witch who spent the last 300 years hunting slimes relentlessly. Azusa didn't believe it would be so high, as she never went on missions or anything of the sort. However, the registration book showed that she had reached level 99 and had over 10,000 points. So, the receptionist calculated how many slimes she defeated per day and per year to understand how she accumulated so many points, solely due to her consistency and daily dedication. Her experience defeating slimes was equivalent to defeating around 4,000 dragons. But that only scared the witch a lot because she was the strongest in the world, and if someone found out, her peaceful life would come to an end. So, she asked the receptionist not to tell anyone for any reason. Then, Azusa went to test her skills by a waterfall. When she cast a spell, all the water froze completely, making it obvious that she possessed immense power. Over time, Azusa learned to use simple spells that allowed her to replicate things from her world, like freezing food and storing it to later heat it with fire and eat it. However, the peaceful life ended when a group of adventurers arrived to challenge her to a duel because they heard she was a level 99 witch. Azusa couldn't deny it as they could sense her immense magical power. So, she accepted the duel on the condition that they spread a new rumor saying she was actually very weak. Azusa didn't know combat magic, but she observed the spell her opponent recited and copied all the words to cast the same spell. Despite trying to control her energy to use her powers only a little, she ended up creating a tornado that was too large, sending her adversaries flying. Azusa returned to the guild to scold the receptionist for revealing her secret, but she wasn't guilty. It was an adventurer who had overheard everything. Then everyone knew that the Witch of the Highland was very powerful. Soon, a massive red dragon came to challenge her. The dragon was the strongest in Nanterre, and if she didn't accept the fight, it would destroy her cabin. Azusa flew through the sky to battle the creature and froze its mouth with a single spell. The dragon fell to the ground, so frightened that it tripped over the cabin and destroyed it. This enraged Azusa, who hit the dragon, causing it to flee in terror to find money to repair the cabin. The townspeople congratulated the Witch of the Highland for defeating the dragon and offered her a room in the Flada town hall for the night. After helping the villagers for the past 300 years, she decided it wasn't bad to accept all the hospitality offered. She also went to eat at the tavern, celebrating with everyone for her victory. The next day, a girl visited, who turned out to be Laika, the same dragon that attacked her before. Laika brought all her money to repair the house, but beyond that, she asked to become Azusa's disciple. However, Azusa didn't know any special training to become stronger other than hunting slimes for centuries. But Laika insisted on joining her in her routines. On the other hand, Azusa thought she might have a servant to live an even more relaxed life than before. So, she accepted Laika, who was overjoyed by the news. Later, Laika began building a new, larger cabin for them to live together. But when Laika wanted to work all night, Azusa stopped her, not wanting her to become enslaved like she once was. And when the cabin was ready, Azusa prepared to live with someone else for the first time in 300 years. Azusa began teaching Laika the amazing technique of hunting only 25 slimes per day, which disappointed the dragon who expected rigorous training. However, Azusa convinced her of the importance of consistency to achieve goals effectively, and finally, Laika became at ease. Nevertheless, they were being observed by a sinister girl whispering her desires for revenge. Meanwhile, Azusa continued with her normal days, happy to have someone else helping her with cooking. Although Laika's portion sizes were exaggerated due to being a dragon, the food was delicious, and Azusa ate it all. Then, Laika shared her concern about the town's weak magical defenses, fearing an attack from an evil mage. Azusa thought that was normal for any town, but Laika worried about potential monster attacks. The real problem was Azusa's astonishing power, which could attract strong enemies wanting to hold the town hostage to defeat her. To protect them, they decided to create a barrier. Laika drew a circle on the ground for Azusa to use her powers. Just as everything was set, at that very moment, Azusa felt an odd premonition. Indeed, as soon as the barrier was raised, a man who had entered to steal became paralyzed. The villagers learned that Azusa created the barrier to protect them and praised her for it. However, Azusa wasn't selfish and admitted it was her student Laika's idea, who was also congratulated by the villagers. Laika's assistance was invaluable to Azusa as they took turns cooking and shared household chores. Everything was going well until suddenly, a girl arrived at the door claiming to be from the Witch of the Highland. Azusa couldn't stand the misunderstanding, but the girl swore that Azusa had given her life. Furthermore, she had a younger sister who had investigated their origins and finally found their mother. On a side note, Laika assumed that having hidden children was a requirement to become strong just like her teacher. With no other option, Azusa invited the little girl to eat. Her name was Farfa, and she came to meet Azusa because her sister Sharsha wanted to destroy their mother. The reason was that supposedly Azusa had taken Sharsha's life, and now she wanted revenge for that. Moreover, Sharsha had spent 50 years studying Haja magic, a type of magic that was highly effective when applied specifically to a single person. The snack was interrupted when Farfa felt the presence of Sharsha, who was approaching with an evil aura. Azusa tried to explain that she couldn't have taken Sharsha's life if she was still alive. As it turns out, Farfa and Sharsha were born from the souls of the countless slimes Azusa had destroyed in the last centuries. That's why Sharsha wanted to defeat her in honor of all the creatures she had ended. Azusa attempted to attack her by creating a tornado that would push her away without harming her. However, the girl managed to stop it using Haja magic. This was incredible considering Azusa's immense power. She tried to attack again, but it was evident that Sharsha's tough training had not been in vain, and she truly had a chance to defeat the powerful Witch of the Highland. Nonetheless, her Haja magic only lasted for an hour. That was her time limit to defeat her enemy. As the girl didn't intend to harm Laika or Farfa, Azusa decided to escape. However, she was also stopped when she was flying in the air and got hurt when she fell back to the ground. Azusa resigned herself to the fact that her second life would end at that moment, after enjoying the last 300 years peacefully. But Laika saved her and then defeated the girl with a single blow. Sharsha lost consciousness because her powerful Haja magic only worked against Azusa and had no effect on others. Upon waking up, Sharsha was at Azusa's house, and when she tried to attack again, she had actually lost her powers and wouldn't be able to regain them for the next 10 years. But Azusa gave her a strange reason to live, which involved waiting all that time to try again to end her and complete her revenge. Besides that, Sharsha couldn't help but cry when she saw that her wounds had healed. After all, Azusa was still her mother, and she assumed the responsibility of taking care of them from now on. Farfa convinced her sister to live a new life together and find happiness. After deciding that the girls would move to that cabin, they accompanied their mother to hunt slimes and explained that the ones with a lighter color were the bad ones. They also showed her their weak point, impressing the witch who hadn't even figured it out despite hunting them every day. Then they wandered around the village so the girls could get to know it without getting lost and demonstrated a memory that made Azusa feel embarrassed for not being equally talented. After spending 300 years alone, Azusa was beginning to enjoy spending pleasant moments in the company of the new family she was building. Although it wasn't as peaceful a life as before, it still wasn't bad at all. Azusa was adapting to the lifestyle in the company of her student and her daughters, who enjoyed reading books. But not children's storybooks, books about economics and politics. That's when she realized that she didn't know much about the topic or about other creatures. Just at that moment, an elf arrived at her doorstep. It was Halkara, a poor elf who was fleeing from the evil demon Beelzebub. Azusa didn't want to help her to avoid trouble, but the elf kept pleading because she knew that Azusa was strong enough to protect her. Halkara was an apothecary from the elven kingdom of France. The reason Beelzebub was after her was because of the potions she prepared, which were very useful for a variety of ailments. although Azusa recognized that their effects were similar to a simple energy drink from her world. It turns out that the demon Beelzebub drank one of the popular potions and it harmed him so much that he fell ill, almost losing his life. The demon vowed to end the creator of that poison to seek revenge. Due to this, Halkara was expelled from her village out of fear that the demon would attack them because of her. Farfa was very sad about her story and begged her mother to take care of Halkara. However, Azusa was only willing to hide her, not to fight Beelzebub. So, she gave Halkara a costume to pose as her student when they were in the village. However, the uniform was too short for her large proportions. Then, Azusa cast a spell to create a barrier that would prevent the demon from entering her home. Later, during a meal, Halkara started crying because after being kicked out of her home, she hadn't enjoyed something delicious or eaten with company. To become closer friends, Azusa took her along to gather herbs, and Halkara showcased her knowledge of both medicinal and poisonous mushrooms. She also taught Azusa how to cook them with a sauce that turned out to be soy sauce from Azusa's world. During this, Halkara accidentally ate a poisonous mushroom, but its effects only caused intense laughter and awakened lust in the person. So, Azusa quickly escaped her student, who wanted to engage in perverted activities. As Halkara persisted, Azusa had to use her magic to fend her off. Back at home, Halkara couldn't bear the embarrassment of what she had attempted. The good thing was that the girls were able to enjoy the delicious mushrooms. Another day, they went to the village, and men couldn't stop staring at Halkara due to her large breasts. But the elf was already used to it. The problem was that jealous women were also giving her looks. In reality, when they arrived at the Hunters Guild, they discovered that Beelzebub was offering a lot of money to find an apothecary with large breasts. Halkara crouched in fear, covering her chest, as they could find her. For safety, Laika transformed into her dragon form and took the girls to a safe place. Meanwhile, Azusa and Halkara were left alone in the cabin, hoping the barrier would be enough to keep the demon out. Halkara drank one of her potions to stay alert for a potential fight and thought that Azusa had consumed all the empty vials. Then they realized the food had disappeared from the table, and a fly was buzzing around until it landed on a wall and transformed, revealing the appearance of a seductive female demon. It was Beelzebub. In reality, he had been there since Halkara's first arrival. Halkara was terrified and willing to do anything to save her life, but Azusa decided to protect her, initiating a fight against Beelzebub. The female demon began to fly, threatening the witch, but she flew so far away that she crashed into the barrier that was supposed to keep her out. However, since she was already inside the house when the barrier was set up, she couldn't leave. Additionally, the impact severely affected Beelzebub, who was too weak to fight. Azusa decided to help her with a healing spell, even though it meant risking another attack. In the end, Beelzebub woke up grateful and actually wanted Halkara to give her more potions because she and the other demons quite liked them. The reason she fell ill was because she used the potions to work through the night until her body gave out. After that, they could finally be at ease, having cleared things up. But Halkara decided to move her factory to the town of Flauta since she had been kicked out of her home and didn't want to give them tax money. Additionally, she wanted to spend more time with her new teacher. On the other hand, Beelzebub returned to challenge Azusa to a new battle to settle scores but got distracted by falling in love with how cute the slime girls were. Laika couldn't help but remember the old times when she happily shared with her sister. In contrast, Halkara wanted to hear the romantic stories that Azusa had experienced in the last 300 years. It seemed impossible that she hadn't had any love during that time. Halkara was a very young elf and was interested in the topic. When she asked the slime girls if they liked anyone, they both responded that they liked their mother. Then, it was Laika's turn to prepare breakfast, and before they started eating, she delivered the news that she would be returning to her true home. All the girls became sad because they had already become a family. However, Laika clarified that she only wanted to attend her sister's wedding and invited them to accompany her. This is how they all ended up flying on top of the large red dragon toward the Rocco volcano, where Laika's home was. Halkara felt dizzy on the way, but her teacher quickly calmed her down to continue the journey. When they arrived, there were many red dragons there who greatly admired Laika because she was actually quite popular. On the other hand, the girls had to be careful while walking because the dragons might mistake them for food. Then, they met Laika's parents, and the huge dragon nearly burst their eardrums with its loud laughter. After that, her sister arrived to introduce her husband. However, the celebration was interrupted by the enemy tribe of blue dragons, who liked to ruin weddings simply because their leader, Flatort, had been single for over 400 years. The girls were scared, and Halkara tried to pretend she was dead so they wouldn't notice her. But a fight broke out between the two tribes, and they had to escape with the help of Azusa's magical powers. When they were far enough away, Azusa intended to keep her distance to avoid getting involved in the problems of another species. However, a blue dragon wanted to attack her family without realizing who they were really messing with. Azusa sent it flying with a single kick and ordered the girls to hide while she joined the battle. Laika was scared because there were many enemies, until fireballs started raining from the sky. The dragons attacked the witch as a group, but Azusa was too powerful and fast to give them a chance to defend themselves. After defeating them all, only their leader Flatort remained, who was very impressed. But when Azusa attacked her, her kick was stopped because the dragoness was also very strong. However, Azusa was more powerful and ended up defeating her with her magic and a few blows. The rest of the blue dragons escaped, and since some of the blue dragons were planning to attack the volcano directly, they had to go investigate in the village. Everything seemed fine for the moment, but Laika's concern was that her sister wouldn't be able to enjoy her wedding peacefully. When they arrived at the center of the village, they found that the dragons had already been trapped in a magic circle. Coincidentally, Beelzebub was there to visit the hot springs and wouldn't let the dragons ruin her vacation. Azusa happily hugged the demon woman because she had solved all their problems. Although Beelzebub was only interested in reminding her of the pending duel, Flatort took her human form as a gesture of peace, and immediately Laika handed her a large bill with all the money she had to pay for all the damages and medical expenses. Finally, Azusa forced her to sign a treaty to establish peace between the blue dragons and the red dragons. Additionally, the powerful demon woman Beelzebub was also a witness to that treaty, and if anyone broke it, they would have to face her again. That's why Azusa gave Beelzebub another hug, against the demon woman's will. Now they could finally have the real wedding party, where Halkara took advantage of getting drunk. When the newlyweds wanted to thank Azusa for her help, she wanted to be modest. Unlike Beelzebub, who enjoyed being praised in exchange for offering her protection. On the other hand, Laika was happy that her little sister had found some good friends. Finally, Flatort came to congratulate the newlyweds, but ended up very embarrassed and wished them a quick divorce. On the other hand, Laika stayed alone with her teacher to ask her to pet her head. Then she told her that although she had always been stronger than her older sister, when she felt bad, her sister would calm her down in that way. Halkara was so drunk that she couldn't get up, so Beelzebub carried her on her back to take her away, and they all ended up visiting the hot springs together with a peculiar group that formed their family, including a couple of spirits, a dragoness, a demon, and an elf. It was a new day, and the group of girls gathered with the concern that Halkara had been displaying strange behavior, which gave them the impression that she would be moving somewhere else soon. However, Azusa decided that they would support her decision and even prepared a farewell party. Farfa cried sadly because she didn't want her to leave. But in reality, Halkara wasn't looking for a place to move herself, but rather a place to set up her potion factory. After that, Halkara had so much work that she came home late every day and endured the workday by drinking her energy potions. This greatly annoyed Azusa, who ordered her to return home when the sun set. However, she couldn't comply with that because supposedly there was a ghost in the factory, and that's why she couldn't get more employees willing to work there. The girls read in their book that it might be a spirit bound to the place, unable to rest in peace. Halkara wasted no time in asking her teacher for help, but Azusa didn't like those paranormal subjects. Still, she couldn't resist her students' pleas when she gave her sad kitten eyes. She agreed with the only condition of getting an assistant, so she cast the summoning spell that Beelzebub had taught her to bring her immediately. But when she appeared, a mistake in the incantation made her arrive falling into a bathtub full of cold water, angering the demon woman. To make matters worse, it turned out that they only called her for help. However, the girls softened Beelzebub's heart until she agreed. At night, they arrived at the factory where the most eerie thing was actually a silly cat statue that Halkara had placed there herself. Azusa and Halkara were very scared, unlike Beelzebub, who walked with great confidence. She had no choice but to take Azusa's hand to lead her scared friend to the room at the end of the hallway where the ghost used to appear. When they entered the room, the candlelight went out, and Beelzebub pointed to a window, frightening the girls even more. Beelzebub scolded them for being cowards and then threatened the ghost to either manifest or face the consequences. Then, a chair moved on its own, and Beelzebub caught the invisible figure that ended up revealing its true appearance. The ghost was a girl named Rosalie, who had taken her own life on the land where they built the factory. It turned out that centuries ago, her parents had sold her off for marriage in exchange for a measly amount of money. That's why she was protecting the only place she considered her property. Then, Beelzebub was about to finally put her to rest. However, the other girls defended her to ask her what she truly wanted in that world. It turns out that Rosalie wasn't able to move away from the building, but Beelzebub knew a method to achieve that. She just had to enter the body of a person with an easily dominated mind, and Halkara was the perfect candidate to do so. That's why they tied her to a chair as a guinea pig. Rosalie entered Halkara's body, and the first thing she noticed was that her breasts were very heavy. But apart from that, she could use the body normally, and they ended up going to Azusa's house to play with the other girls. When Rosalie wanted to leave the body, she felt as if she were stuck, and this way she couldn't return Halkara's consciousness. They each tried different ways to get her out of that body. Azusa shook her like a stuck jar of cookies. Sharsha hit her to force her out, and Beelzebub was about to destroy her with her power, until Azusa stopped her. They also tried to scare her by flying on the back of a dragon and then making her fall from the sky to make her tremble with fear. None of their other attempts yielded results, not even a priest's exorcism. If Rosalie's soul didn't leave the body, Halkara's life was in danger. So, they gave Rosalie alcohol to make her fall asleep, and that's how Halkara's consciousness finally woke up. Since it worked, now they had to awaken the ghost's consciousness. Beelzebub came up with the brilliant idea of throwing her into cold water, and that's how Rosalie's spirit came out. From now on, the girl would also join their peculiar family. So, Rosalie appeared in front of the villagers to make them stop fearing her and to encourage them to accept jobs in the factory. Beelzebub suddenly appeared, saying that Azusa would be awarded the demon's medal. This was only given to individuals who improved the future of society. Therefore, she would be rewarded for stopping a battle between the blue and red dragons and even making them sign an agreement. Based on that, she would be given the peace medal. At first, everyone was excited, but the problem was that the ceremony would take place in the terrifying realm of demons. Beelzebub promised that they wouldn't be harmed as long as they respected all the rules. So, the only thing they had to fear was if absent-minded Halkara did something silly. On her part, Halkara was so afraid that she planned to pretend to be sick to avoid attending. But if she didn't comply with the invitation, it would be considered impolite, so she would have to accept it against her true wishes, as if she were being forced to jump from the top of a castle. On the other hand, Azusa didn't know what to wear, and since Rosalie wanted to attend, it became a problem to figure out an outfit change for a ghost. Sharsha took them to an expert in ghosts, who explained that she couldn't change clothes because the outfit they saw was just a manifestation of her own soul. Perhaps she wore that dress because it was part of her memories. So Rosalie was about to give up, but Azusa also wanted her to wear something nice for the occasion, and she came up with the idea that with magic, she could create more clothes for the ghost girl. Azusa showed a dress to Rosalie for her to observe it carefully and imagine herself wearing it at the party. Rosalie found it silly and mystical to be swayed only by blind faith, but she didn't have a better option, so she began to detail the dress and practice dancing, imagining herself wearing that dress. Meanwhile, Azusa continued designing her new spell, until finally, she finished it and placed Rosalie in the middle of a magic circle and cast the spell. Her hard work actually worked, and the ghost girl appeared in a beautiful and elegant outfit. When they were ready, they all waited to be picked up to go to the demon realm. To their surprise, what appeared was the Leviathan, a gigantic whale flying in the sky that scared Halkara a lot. When they climbed onto the giant animal, it was so big that it had a building on its back, which functioned as a cruise ship. Inside, there were rooms and hot springs. When they entered the bath, Beelzebub discovered one of the spirits of Leviathan slacking off, a demon girl named Vanya. After scolding her, Beelzebub explained that if they spent too much time in the hot water, their bodies would melt. They worried again that the clumsy Halkara would stay in the hot springs for hours until she melted. When they left, the other spirit of Leviathan appeared, identical to the previous one, except her name was Frada, and she would take care of them during the journey. Dinner was also very good, and they ended up taking a bath in the hot springs. The journey to a dangerous place now seemed like a pleasant vacation. At night, everyone was asleep except for Rosalie because she was a ghost. Halkara went out because she couldn't find the bathroom and, after talking for a while, returned to her room. Or at least that's what Rosalie thought, because in the morning, no one could find Halkara. They all ran scared, thinking she had spent the night in the bath and melted, but she was just asleep under the bed. When they reached the demon capital, they became afraid again when they learned they had to meet directly with the demon king. Halkara imagined that if she made a mistake, they would torture her and then burn her body. Inside the castle, there was a maze of corridors and stairs so that enemies would get lost if they tried to attack. When they finally entered the throne room, no one was sitting in the seat. Instead, they were greeted by an excited girl eager to meet the powerful Azusa. So Halkara asked the girl to let them see the demon king before he got upset waiting, and because she was very scared, she pretended to be calm and polite. But she was surprised to learn that the girl was none other than the demon queen, Pekora. Terrified, Halkara buried her head in the ground to apologize. But she continued messing up when she mispronounced the queen's name. Pekora calmed her down with a promise not to harm her, so Halkara raised her head and accidentally hit the girl's jaw, causing her to faint. Then Beelzebub tried to help her queen without much success, but everyone understood that it would have been better to leave Halkara at home, as she was now locked in a cell fearing for her life. Halkara's offense was so serious that it could even result in the destruction of the elves' village, and all the girls who came with her were also locked in a room. The only hope left was for the Demon Queen to wake up before the execution to revoke the law that condemned her to a horrible fate. Rosalie found a garden where they could find medicinal plants to cure the queen, and Laika turned into an adorable little dragon to escape and search for the plants. Then Azusa prepared a foul green drink that would simply wake the queen due to its strong smell and bitter taste. Suddenly, Vanya entered through the window, bringing a map with the queen's location and a doctor's disguise for Azusa to pass without issues. Azusa was annoyed to wear the silly costume, but she had no choice but to go along with the plan. The problem was that they hadn't thought through all the important details, and when they reached the infirmary, Vanya got confused and the guards discovered that Azusa was actually the Highland Witch. The demons attacked the witch at once, but once again, Azusa demonstrated that her power was equivalent to that of thousands of soldiers. After getting rid of the obstacles, Azusa finally approached the Demon Queen to give her the drink, but before taking a sip, the girl suddenly stood up. The queen believed the drink was poisoned, and if Azusa wanted to prove her innocence, she would have to face Pecora in a battle. If she defeated the queen without causing serious harm, it would mean her intentions were honest. If the queen won, only stories of the witch who lost her life at the hands of the Demon Queen would remain. After a powerful explosion and several bursts of power, the queen realized that the witch was actually very powerful. Instead of being scared, the queen provoked Azusa's anger, causing her to stop holding back and delivering a powerful blow that struck her sword and sent her crashing into the wall. Azusa's clothes were torn everywhere, but the queen's weapon was also destroyed, and the witch used her brute strength to further intimidate the girl. However, the queen simply grabbed Azusa's cheek and confessed that she had always wanted to find someone stronger than herself. Now she would take Azusa practically as her older sister and obey all her orders, including releasing Halkara. Now Azusa would have to call her by her first name, Pecora, and behave affectionately. Despite Pecora's flirtatious behavior, Azusa had to fulfill her desire to be pampered like a good girl and then order her subordinates to release Halkara, as she had only made a mistake. Afterwards, Pecora enjoyed tea with her new sister, sharing that she loved receiving orders because she was tired of her lackeys being too submissive. She wanted Beelzebub to be her older sister, but it didn't work because she never scolded her. Azusa agreed that she would call on Pecora if she ever needed help, but in return, the queen wanted a favor. A very simple and small one. Blushing, Pecora asked for a kiss on the cheek, as in her favorite stories there was always a kiss between good friends. Azusa offered only a hug, but Pecora wanted a kiss. So, Azusa stood behind the queen, pushed aside her hair to reveal her cheek. Pecora closed her eyes, and just as she was about to kiss her, the other girls arrived, seeing them from an angle that made it seem like they were kissing on the lips. Everyone felt embarrassed, but Halkara assured them that she supported their preferences. Azusa lamented the misunderstanding, but beyond that, Pecora was very upset by the interruption. Aside from that, now everyone wanted a show of affection. Therefore, Azusa kissed her two daughters on the cheek, and the girls also gave their mother a kiss. The other girls received embarrassed hugs, and Pecora monopolized Azusa again. Afterwards, they actually held a ceremony to present the medals of the demon realm, including Azusa's peace medal for stopping the war between the dragons. Pecora invited Laika, Flatort, and Azusa onto the stage and threw a medal to each of them to catch in the air. With that formal act in front of a crowd, the blue dragon couldn't easily break the pact. But Flatort still doubted being able to uphold the treaty, so she was forced to allow Azusa to stroke her horns. This way, she would have to obey the witch forever, although that was too humiliating for the blue dragon. On the cruise back home, Flatort also accompanied them, as she had the duty to protect her new master. Laika didn't want to live with her, but if Flatort left, she would have to take her own life for being separated from her master. Worst of all, Pecora forced her to comply with that information. Suddenly, Fosca stumbled, and Flatort prevented Azusa from getting wet with a drink. For Azusa, it was excessive to be so careful, so she invited Flatort to the bathroom to talk privately and ordered her not to be overly servile or follow all her orders, as she didn't want to treat her like a slave. Flatort then asked for the curious favor of being petted on the head, just like Laika had done before. Laika, feeling jealous, pushed her away and started an argument. The good thing about it all was that the trip ended well, and the family grew once again. In this new world, Azusa could happily enjoy her peaceful life. Of course, if it weren't for the fact that now there were two rival dragonesses living in her house, constantly bickering over things as silly as who baked the tastiest cookies. On top of that, Azusa couldn't resolve the conflict because she liked all the cookies. Halkara determined that the dragonesses were agitated because they hadn't eaten much meat lately. Then, the guild receptionist arrived to inform them about some boar-like beasts attacking nearby, and the adventurers couldn't defeat them. Azusa didn't want to accept the mission to eliminate the animals since she already had plenty of magic stones. However, as they weren't monsters, defeating the boars wouldn't yield stones. Instead, they would obtain meat. Therefore, Laika and Flatort became excited immediately, pleading to go hunt them. Azusa understood her girls' needs and allowed the dragonesses to fly quickly to the location. However, their dragon form was too large to navigate through the forest. Unlike Rosalie, who could pass through trees, Flatort got caught in some branches. So, she removed all her clothing to be comfortable while naked. After ensuring no people were in the forest, she sprinted off. However, she returned embarrassed because someone saw her. She put on at least her underwear and started running again. This time, they chased her to prevent her from gaining a reputation as an exhibitionist. Later, Flatort was attacked by the boars, who stole her clothes and threw them in the air, where they landed in the water, carried away by the river's current. In revenge, they defeated all the animals and roasted their delicious meat. Beelzebub and Fosca arrived with Flatort's clothes. Coincidentally, they were at the riverbank investigating the boar situation. With that resolved, they simply joined the meal. When they returned to the cabin, the two dragonesses requested as a reward to sleep with Azusa that night. The witch told them they seemed like three sisters having a sleepover and needed to learn to get along, like a real family. Then, in the early morning, Azusa woke up alone in her bed, as the two dragonesses sneaked into the kitchen to eat meat, unaware that they would be caught. At another time, it's shown that Azusa started working at Halkara's factory, and one day she overheard some employees talking about the Highland Witch. Someone was impersonating her. They decided to split up to gather information about the imposter. Azusa and Laika entered a dangerous tavern, but they were attended to by the owner, a sadist who spoke ill to customers to arouse them. She recounted the strategy that allowed the tavern to recover from bankruptcy, offering a different service by treating customers like pigs. If they wanted information from the owner, they would have to help her for a while, treating men as if they were lower than excrement. For Azusa, it was easy to insult each of them, making them blush at her words. Laika, on the other hand, started insulting them to the point of getting overly excited. After satisfying the owner, she told them that the supposed Highland Witch had headed north. When they traveled there, they found an old woman dressed as a witch who was scamming all the villagers. However, Azusa revealed that she knew the real Highland Witch and challenged her to a duel to prove the truth. However, the old woman vanished in the blink of an eye, and when they caught her, she revealed her true form, a cute young redhead named Ino. Ino took them to her cave beneath a tree and knelt down, apologizing to the real Highland Witch. She hadn't done anything wrong while using her name. It turns out Ino was a witch who knew some good ingredients for making medicines, and she didn't want to sell them because she was embarrassed to become famous. However, she was willing to give them to someone to turn into a product so that only a few people would know her. Laika found it strange that she didn't want to be famous but wanted to be recognized. Azusa explained that she was only vain enough to desire the praises of a few people who could genuinely appreciate her talent. Ino wanted to be recognized by her people to the point where they would even build a bronze statue in her honor, and to achieve that, she would have to perform good deeds. So, they went to the market, where Ino introduced herself as a magical girl, as she was shy about appearing in public, but it was different if she acted as a fictional character. On the other hand, Laika and Flatort set up their own cookie stalls to compete against each other, while Rosalie helped promote the Masochist's Tavern. Finally, Ino started selling her medicines, and her business did so well that she couldn't meet the demand entirely. Sharsha ran crying to find her mother because, for some strange reason, Farfa had turned back into a slime form. She didn't know how or why it happened. None of the girls knew how to fix it, so Azusa reluctantly summoned a very annoyed Beelzebub, who had fallen into the bathtub again. Then the demon woman became very sad because her beloved child couldn't regain her form. At least she offered a solution: to visit the castle of Vanzard, where the intelligent slime lived. Laika flew them on her back to the castle, but the slime lived underground because it preferred darkness. The place was so big that to avoid getting lost, Beelzebub left breadcrumbs along the way. However, the slime Farfa ate them all, so they got lost and ended up on the surface again, where they encountered Pecora. The demon queen offered to guide them, but only if Azusa gave her a kiss. When they did, Pecora overflowed with happiness. Turns out, the entrance was right in front of them in a warehouse, and when they entered, they quickly found a loose board on the floor. Inside was the slime, which actually had a quite dark color. To communicate, it used a board with letters to point out the words it wanted to say. They asked for advice on curing Farfa, and the slime started pointing at the letters, indicating that they should consult the magic slime that lived in the Timuriana mountain. For the moment, they returned home while figuring out where they had to go next. Farfa was very sad while eating her food and also when taking a bath, until Azusa comforted her by saying that it didn't matter how she looked. Another day, they went to the top of a mountain, where they found the hut of the magic slime who used a spell to take on a human appearance. To make it easier to call her, Azusa gave her the nickname, Slimaga. Then Slimaga buried her face in Farfa, discovering that she was a special type of slime, and the reason for her transformation was simply due to making a bad gesture, which caused her to injure a muscle, probably while she was asleep. The discomfort prevented her from regaining her human form, and only she could understand her own body to change it again. But it would also be helpful to meet the fighting slime who took on a human form by training her body. To convince the Slilucha, they entered a martial arts tournament where she would participate. However, Beelzebub had to be careful not to be discovered as a demon woman, and using magic was against the rules in Azusa's case. Although that wasn't a problem for the witch who still had excessive strength, so both girls defeated their rivals, quickly climbing in the rankings. The idea was for Azusa to defeat Slilucha to persuade her to help, but Beelzebub had to fight her first and defeated her with a single blow. The advantage was that now Beelzebub could fight Azusa head-on, but the witch was just stressed because instead of helping Farfa, they started fighting each other to prove something silly. However, Farfa had already regained her body and could now fight without worrying about anything else. Since their first duel, Azusa and Beelzebub couldn't challenge each other again to clarify who was truly stronger. Beelzebub took off the cap that hid her horns and attacked. Then she spread her wings, and it turned out that the audience couldn't recognize her appearance as a demon. On the other hand, Azusa couldn't fly without magic, so all she could do was wait until she landed. The force of the attack created a curtain of smoke, but when it cleared, Azusa was just squeezing Beelzebub's cheeks as if nothing had happened. Now, Azusa attacked, and an amazing hand-to-hand combat began while the other girls watched from the stands, and Beelzebub remembered all the hard training she had done to face her rival. Azusa grew tired of the fight, but Farfa encouraged her to win, and finally, the witch delivered the final blow to Beelzebub. After the victory, Azusa met the enthusiastic fighting slime who wanted to become her disciple to learn to fight like her, but in reality, Azusa knew nothing about martial arts, so she would settle for having at least one duel together. But before Slilucha could land the first blow, a dark aura appeared around Azusa caused by the countless souls of slimes she had defeated. This scared the fighter so much that she fainted, and when she woke up, she was afraid that Azusa would be her teacher, so she asked Beelzebub instead. The demon woman didn't want to teach her martial arts, but it would be good for Slilucha to accompany them to watch over Farfa in case she got sick again, so she ended up accepting it almost against her will. Now that everything was resolved, Azusa was happy to have her daughter healthy and safe, but it made her think about wanting to level up as the best mom. In the town of Flata, they posted an announcement for a troubadour show, and since Flatort was a fan of musicians, they decided to go see it. When they arrived at the show, the troubadour with rabbit ears turned out to be some sort of rocker who played loud music with her electric guitar. All the frightened spectators started leaving one by one. Only Azusa and Flatort remained because the Blue Dragon was obsessed with seeing all troubadours regardless of their quality. Then the troubadour fainted at the end of her performance, and Azusa cast a healing spell, but the girl was just starving. So, they took her to the cabin where she devoured a lot of food, and after taking a bath, she showed a completely different and adorable appearance. She was an Almiraj named Cuckoo. The girl had left her home many years ago to fulfill her dream of becoming famous, but she never achieved success. That's why she was now considering accepting a job offer as a flirtatious bunny because they offered her a lot of money. However, Azusa disagreed with letting Cuckoo be taken advantage of and offered her to stay in the cabin while continuing to fight for her dreams. As a thank you, Cuckoo gave them a crazy private concert playing her metal-style music that only tormented their listeners. Flatort took her aside to talk, with the intention of changing her music style, but Cuckoo believed it would be very difficult. Then Flatort began playing a soft and simple song to demonstrate that even a novice like her could show amazing talent. The problem was that Cuckoo had been doing the same thing for so long that she was already too accustomed to it. So, they all gathered to help her write new songs. Laika tried first, but her lyrics sounded like a war song. Halkara only promoted her medicinal concoction. Then the girls presented a very childish song about the creatures that inhabit the land and the existential crisis of creation. Azusa was delighted, but for Flatort, the true meaning of the song was disturbing, although not as disturbing as Rosalie's song that recounted her dark days as a trapped and lonely ghost. Thanks to that, Cuckoo finally understood that even though she wanted to play metal songs about bad things, The truth was that she had never experienced such sad experiences as Rosalie's ghost. Therefore, she would now be willing to change her music style. So, the days passed while they lived in the cabin, writing new lyrics for her songs, until she finally packed her bags to go back on tour around the world. Flathort wished her luck but made it clear that she was really bad with music. Then Beelzebub came to visit for some wine and met the singer, asking for a demonstration of her talent. To everyone's surprise, they really liked the music, and in addition, Beelzebub was fascinated by Cuckoo's song. That's why she invited Cuckoo to a festival at Vanzard Castle, where there would be an audience of about 20,000 people. This scared the little bunny, who preferred to stay longer in the cabin to practice tirelessly. Later, everyone accompanied Cuckoo to the castle and stayed in a luxurious room overlooking the market, which they wanted to visit right away. They had a pleasant day until they returned at dusk to find Cuckoo worried about her upcoming performance. Flathort tried to cheer her up, but what really calmed her was seeing Laika and Flathort starting to argue. After a bit of laughter, Cuckoo felt better and went on stage. The festival had a huge crowd, but her friends were also among the audience to watch her. She introduced her song with the title, Thanks, and sang a J-rock style song that moved everyone to tears. With her outstanding performance, Beelzebub secured her many contracts for performances in other places. Then, Flathort suddenly grabbed a guitar and started playing rock metal to tell Cuckoo that she did well, but she shouldn't forget her roots and the style she truly loved, regardless of the trends that the audience favored. Flathort congratulated Cuckoo and gave her the support she needed to do whatever she wanted, knowing that in the end, all her friends would be there for her. Halkara organized a mushroom party, thanks to having spent a lot of time studying all the mushrooms in the forest to make sure they were edible. Despite her bad experience in the past, Azusa decided to trust her. After cooking the mushrooms, they could enjoy the delicious meal. In fact, Azusa even accompanied it with sake. Everything was fine until Halkara explained the purpose of each mushroom, and one of them caused the body to shrink. Azusa got scared immediately, but unfortunately, she had already eaten it, and it didn't take long for its effects to kick in. All the girls watched worriedly as she fell unconscious. When she woke up, she had turned into a cute little girl. Halkara rushed to find something to counteract the effects, while all the girls were overwhelmed by the cuteness of Chibi Azusa. They wanted to take care of her as if she were truly a child, even though she was mentally an adult of 300 years. That didn't stop them from buying her cookies and reading her a story until she fell asleep. Even Laika prepared a child-themed breakfast for her, but it was more annoying for Azusa that they wanted to pat her head constantly, and her height prevented her from reaching high objects. Halkara returned admitting she didn't find a solution, but she didn't seem very worried about it either. So, Azusa summoned Beelzebub, who had seemingly gotten used to falling into the bathtub. When the demon woman saw little Azusa, she believed it would be better for her to stay so cute because she would be the strongest girl in the world. However, that would also be a problem because rumors of Beelzebub being defeated by a child would spread. So, they decided to take the Leviathan cruise to reach Vanzard. Azusa didn't want to run into Pecora because, as soon as she found her, she gave the girl a big hug. She looked adorable. Pecora didn't want Azusa to become big again. She even sought the support of the girls, asking them to ask to stay as they were. But in the end, she told them how to solve it, for which they would have to go to a dark forest where the world tree was located. It was a dungeon with 108 floors inhabited by wild and dangerous creatures. For that reason, Azusa preferred to go only with the twins Fosca and Vanya. When they arrived, Azusa expected to enter a really dark place, but she was disappointed because it looked more like a tourist resort, where they handed out dungeon maps and sold food for the journey. Fortunately, they would ascend quickly thanks to the elevators, but on the way, they encountered wild beasts that turned out to be friendly wolves. Nevertheless, it was still a place designed to take their money, as they even created an artificial poisonous lake to force them to pay for the elevator. Halfway through, they rested at an inn with hot springs, then continued through mazes, deserts, and other places until they encountered some disgusting slimy sloths that they easily defeated. They also continued taking breaks when dusk fell, allowing them to share enjoyable moments. Until finally, they reached the summit where a mystical pharmacy was located, guarding medicines from all around the world and attended by a fairy who searched for a cure for Azusa. However, it turned out that the cure was simply the pills that Ino herself sold. Coincidentally, at that moment Ino brought some boxes with more supplies, but instead of going all the way up the dungeon he simply flew in a wyvern. The queen forgot that they could fly there without spending so much money on the way, but the good thing was that they already had the cure and Azusa wanted to go to her room to take it quickly, but just in case, she was told to do it right there, and of course taking the medicine without taking precautions had consequences. Suddenly, the girl's body began to grow too fast for her clothes to withstand the stretching and she ended up tearing completely. Pecora was happy to see that spectacle and as punishment Azusa decided that they would all bathe together in the hot springs. Pecora was embarrassed to bathe with other people in the same place, so the queen really regretted it, but beyond that, she wanted to continue exploring other things than the simple kisses she read about in her books. Now she wanted to touch Azusa's breasts, who ran out of the water, being chased by Queen Pecora while the others quietly enjoyed their bath. The people of Flada began to organize their annual festival where they praised the god of the earth to ensure a good harvest. Until now Azusa did not get involved in the festivals because she had been living there for a long time and with the help she gave them they would end up idolizing her. However, now that she had a large family, it caught her attention to do something to participate in a not so flashy or personal way. So they all went to a restaurant and seeing the girls enjoying the food and drink she thought they could sell that sort of thing too. By the way, when Azusa saw the girls serving water sweetly, she came up with a fantastic idea in her mind, to open a cafe called the Witch's House. She first had measurements taken for everyone to make uniforms, and when they tried them on, the girls looked like adorable lawless. Halkara, on the other hand, couldn't fasten the buttons on her chest because they were too large. Flatort looked great, but it was uncomfortable for her dragon tail, so she took off all her clothes with the intention of working naked. Rosalie was also able to wear a maid outfit through a spell previously invented by Azusa. The only one missing was Laika, who emerged from the cabin as beautiful as a goddess from the sky. Then they started proposing drinks and dishes for the menu. Halkara's energy drinks were flatly rejected. Laika's huge omelette dish only elicited teasing from Flatort, who suggested serving infinite amounts of meat. Finally, Falfa brought a cricket to be cooked, and Azusa realized that only she could choose the menu. Then they all worked together to arrange the restaurant and drew signs to promote it on the streets. On the opening day, a large number of people eager to enter the cafe gathered very early. So, even in their pajamas, they had to decide to open early, and the customers were thrilled. Azusa's family attended to the people as if they were in a maid cafe. Azusa looked good. Halkara was sexy. The twins were adorable, and Laika evoked strong emotions among the visitors. To not fall behind, Flatort put on a show as a waitress, but she dropped the dishes, which were saved by Rosalie's ghostly powers, charming the customers with her cuteness. On the other hand, people were pleased with the food and the decor. Unfortunately, Azusa didn't realize how much work it was, and Sharsha's feet hurt as a result. To rest, she only sat down to tally the bills. The place was so crowded that they ran around like crazy. Then Beelzebub arrived, annoyed because she wasn't informed about the opening, so she ended up wearing a maid outfit to help with serving tables. Despite being a demon woman, the role of maid suited her perfectly. The line of customers grew longer outside the venue, and the whale Leviathan flew in. Then Pecora appeared dressed as a maid, putting on an ultra-cute show that almost killed customers with cuteness. Vanya and Fosca also helped in the kitchen, and Azusa couldn't refuse them because the orders kept increasing. On the other hand, Ino took advantage of the crowd to promote her medicines, and Cuckoo presented her musical performance there. And that's how little by little they were able to attend to all the customers satisfactorily until the night came, and hardly anyone was left. After work, the demon women flew away on Leviathan, and the girls were tired but very happy to have their new place. Azusa stood by the window, reminiscing about all the changes her life had undergone after being alone for 300 years. Perhaps initially she enjoyed having peace and tranquility, but the recent adventures were invaluable, and she had never been as happy as she was now. Therefore, she would continue to defeat slimes daily, just as she had been doing since arriving in this world. Only now, more activities were added to her routine, and she shared her life with a bunch of girls whom she considered part of her family. Then, they all got ready to attend the closing of the festival, where they wanted to enjoy and dance until they were exhausted. So, Azusa made sure to warn them not to cause any trouble, while Rosalie simply floated leisurely in the air. When a knock came at the door, Azusa simply opened it, pleased to live another new and wonderful day. And that's how the first season of this anime ends. If you've reached this part of the video, let me tell you that you've been one of the few people to make it this far. So comment the word "witch" in the comments. Remember to subscribe to not miss any videos. With that said, see you in the next video.